India's market news headquarters. Cutting-edge analysis. Influential insights. Market-moving intelligence. Broadcasting live from the CNBC TV18 Motilal Oswal studios in Mumbai.
Good morning. You're with us here on a fresh new edition of Bazaar Morning Call. We are coming to you live from the CNBC TV18 Motilal Oswal studios. I am Prashant. With me, my colleagues Surbi and Nigel. Guys, good morning.
Hi, morning. Well, what a blockbuster weekend we've had. Plenty of action in global markets and here at home as well with this major Maharashtra verdict.
Well, if you're looking for inspiration with regard to a fight back, you've got it in the last 3 days. If you look at the India versus Australia test match, it swung in our favor after a very, very bleak start. Everyone was talking about the NDA, their poor performance in the Lok Sabha elections. Take a look at the bounce back. So if we're looking for, inspiration, well, you've got plenty of it with regard to a fight back. And I have to mention Virat Kohli. Don't write that man out. When he comes back in style and he lets the bat do the talking. Totally pumped up this morning.
The weekend of bounce backs.
Absolutely. And I think let's hope that the market also sees a bit of a bounce back. Because this morning, the start is going to be good, absolutely good. And the question is, will the start be the top for the day? Or is there going to be enough in the sort of bag for the market to keep going higher? So let's start by laying out the big triggers, the big dominating drivers, really. So Maharashtra election results, first up. I think, it's a big thumbs up. Markets are giving a big thumbs up this morning. And it's a big sentiment booster as well, of course. I mean, naturally. Maharashtra is an important state, 13% of overall India's GDP. It's about 9% of India's population. There is, of course, what this means for the state, but there is also, of course, what it means for the center. For the state, we've not had a stable, steady government. We've had, 3 chief ministers. We've had various political parties jockeying for power. Here in Mumbai, if you are in Mumbai, you know what I'm talking about. But I think, and the hope is that now with this kind of political stability coming in for the next 5 years, I think all of that is going to be a thing of the past, and infrastructure projects for a large, economically important state like Maharashtra will show up in the national numbers as well. Consumption is another thing. At the margin, you can say that a lot of this, of course, is pointing in the direction of more sort of freebies, handouts, and I think that is something for the long term. State after state is doing it. And here in Maharashtra, it was no different with the Ladki Behna scheme, which is income transfer to women. And I think we've seen that in Madhya Pradesh, we've seen that in Haryana earlier, we've seen that in every large state. So, I think, but that's a discussion for another time. But for now, there is political stability, and I think markets are cheering it. I think this is also important because the general elections were a bit of a dampener for the ruling NDA. And this is, of course, you had Haryana win, which was good, but Maharashtra, of course, is much more significant in every which way. So this kind of reverses some of that hit that we saw back in the month of June. Okay, so that's the Maharashtra bit. And I think the GIFT Nifty is indicating that start purely on the back of that. US equities, just a quick bit. That's the GIFT Nifty, by the way, 450 odd points higher this morning. So US equities on Friday did well. We were up 1/3% on the S&P. Nasdaq was up about 0.16. The Treasury yield was flat, down 2 basis points to 4.4. Dollar index. Dollar index, by the way, ended on Friday 0.5% higher. This morning, it's down 0.5%. The reason, the only reason that I could see is the fact that Trump, President-elect Trump, has nominated Scott Bessent as he's, of course, he's a billionaire, he's a money manager, macro investor. He's nominated Mr. Bessent for the post of Treasury Secretary. This is the most important post from a market point of view. And the reason the dollar may be slightly lower is because Mr. Bessent is considered to be, he supports Trump on tariffs and everything else, but he's also seen as a bit of a fiscal hawk. So we'll have to see how this plays out and interpretations, etc. Remember, the inauguration, of course, is not until the 20th of January. Oil prices up 1.5%. We're back above $75. Bitcoin, I'm not sure if it's hit 100,000, but I think we are hovering around that landmark 100,000 level for Bitcoin prices. And just one thing, we are now starting today entering seasonally what is the best period for US equities all the way into the end of the year. So keep that at the back of the mind as well. So this is a traditionally, seasonally good part as far as equities in the US go. So just to tie up all the levels, for the Nifty, I think the targets are 2431, which we sort of sweep across this morning as far as the start is concerned. And then we get to 24,346, which is the 40-day exponential moving average. I mean, if the GIFT Nifty is right, you probably will start at that level, 24,346. I mean, the problem with these kind of gap ups is that nobody gets any chance to get in and to do anything as far as the indices are concerned. Stocks are another matter. I think we are going to get that kind of a start. Should not break, I mean, on the downside, the Nifty should not break the low of 23,263. For the Nifty Bank, targets are 51,127, which is the 50% retracement of the entire decline that we actually had. Sorry, that is 52,127, not 51,127. We'll correct that. And for the Nifty Bank, we should not break Friday's low, which is 49,787. If the decline is complete, this should not come into view again. GIFT Nifty coming up on your screen. As I said, it's going to be tough to get in because unlikely anybody gets a word in, because you're going to start with that furious gap up straight into the 40-day exponential moving average. And then, I mean, I think 2% on Friday, another 2% this morning. You know, election, no election, in the near term, you got to look at risk reward, and then it becomes a little more unclear in the very, very near term. So 24,500 roundabout this week, I think that's the level that I'm looking at. Surabhi.
Okay, and what's going to be fueling that gap up is the Asian market trade this morning, because our neighborhood is a nice shade of green pretty much all throughout, whether it's the Chinese markets or Japanese markets, whichever one you're looking at. Singapore also up and about. It's also an important week in terms of a lot of data points coming through, and we'll get the GDP numbers for India as well by the time we sort of wind down the week. And then there are inflation prints in some of the regional markets. But the start is positive, is a short point. It's very interesting, the divergence across asset classes, and that's what I was noting. And just to take that on board, look at what the oil markets are saying and what the gold markets are saying. They're worried about geopolitics, and they're worried about whatever's happening between Ukraine and Russia, and whether this is turning out to be a sort of a bigger escalation between Russia and the US, which is why oil all of last week was up about 5.5%. Gold all of last week was up almost 6%. Now, this morning, if you see the prices, let's actually bring the hot boards on. On Brent, at least it's below 75, because, on the Friday surge of 1.5% on Brent took it above $75 a barrel. This morning, there's a bit of a cool off. And likewise for gold as well. After a big week last week, almost 6%, this morning it's a little quieter. However, while these two asset classes flash a little bit of red, equities are already in Santa Claus mode. As Prashant also pointed out, this is the end of the year party, perhaps that's starting on Wall Street, because after a bit of a post-Trump lull, the ride was back on. If you look at the gains, what was interesting was that the Nasdaq ended flat, because some of the bigger stocks like Nvidia, Alphabet, they had some profit taking after the Nvidia results. The Russell continues to power away. Again, last week, over 4% rally on the Russell. But what was most interesting for me on Friday was that the Dow was leading the charge with a 2% rise. A lot of economy-facing stocks and domestic consumption-facing stocks in the US are doing great. Which were the stocks that rallied on Wall Street on Friday? Stocks like Home Depot, Boeing, Walmart. So it's more about some of these economy sort of sensitive names rather than the old tech names. So there's a bit of a shift that's ongoing in Wall Street, which now brings me to India. Let's talk about the moves that we've seen on our street so far in November. The IT index has been a rank outperformer, and we'll talk more about IT as we go forward. We have an expert lined up on that. Over 7% rally on the IT index, whereas the CapEx/economy/PSU side of the market, that's been an underperformer. So if you look at the PSE index or the infra index or the capital goods index on the BSE, they're down anywhere between 2 to 4%. So the question that I'm asking is that will the Maharashtra win get a bit of a, tilt back, the focus back on the infra side of the market and the capex side of the market, even here for us, though IT may continue to rally for other reasons. And the dollar strength is something that we've been speaking about, and perhaps the rising spending power in the US. So infra stocks definitely will be in focus. We have good news coming in from the fund flow position, because after many, many days, the intensity of that FPI selling number has reduced. The number was less than 1,500 crores. In fact, it was just about 1,300 crores on Friday. And domestic institutions were buyers, and we had that huge move on Friday. Expect some of that to continue today, at least at the start. Some interesting stocks in focus. BSE, and the reason I say BSE is that the fact that they're adding over 40 stocks in F&O is showing that they're getting a little creative, a little aggressive. And some of the names include the likes of a Paytm, D-Mart, Zomato. So will it get people to trade more on this exchange versus the other where some of these contracts are not available? So that's going to be an interesting one to watch for sure. And speaking of Zomato, that's also a stock in focus because not only is it getting added into the sensex, it's replacing JSW Steel, but this QIP that they've been planning, they got the shareholders' approval for it. So the company is going to be looking at raising about 8,500 crores soon enough. So plenty of headlines around Zomato, apart from the fact that Mr. Dipinder Goyal is looking to employ someone where the person has to pay the first year salary. That's a separate social media, great viral debate. But I think plenty to keep us busy today, Nigel.
Well, that's right. I want to see the end. I'm looking at the ends on two factors. One is on the markets and one is the match. The India versus Australia match is going according to plan. We require only 6 wickets and there are 500 runs to get for the Australians. So that's going well. Hopefully the markets as well. We end well today. So the markets, they sniffed, that it's going to be a good showing coming in from the NDA, and that it was. So part of the good news is in the price, but I'll tell you what, the magnitude of this win wasn't really priced in. So that's something that maybe could help us move a little bit higher even from here on. The other point is, this market had become a bit of a short on bounce kind of market. In the near term, could we have formed a near-term bottom at around this 23,200 odd mark, which was the crucial support, and today we're going to gap up. So maybe that short on bounce trade, that takes a bit of a breather in the near term. And a solid close is what the bulls would want. The start is going to be good, but at the end of the day, you'll want us to end closer to the higher point of the day rather than come off the day's high. Let's talk about two factors though. Yes, the BJP has performed very, very well. Yes, things are looking up as of now. But two factors need to cool off. One is the FI selling, which is showing signs of that. It's come down to sub 1,500 crores odd. Hopefully, with the cues that we have, hopefully that number stays subdued or maybe it turns around as well. And the dollar index, overnight it went to around 107.5, which wasn't very, very good. The good news is it's come off close to around 0.5% from the top. So I'll keep an eye out on both these two factors because these are the global cues. What happened in Friday's trading session though? Why did we see such a big bounce? There was a massive short covering bounce that did play out. The shorts covered out close to around 80,000 contracts. Long addition close to around 30,000 contracts. The swing factor out there more than 45,000 contracts, telling you the kind of short covering bounce that we see. And that was the power of short covering. Though the shorts continue to remain at around 67%, 69%, it's come down from close to around 78, 79% odd. Let's pull up a couple of bars now to tell you about the magnitude of the shorts that were covered in the system. You had the shorts at around this 2 lakh contracts, or the FI net short positions. In a single trading session, it's come down to around 1.5 lakh contracts. So there was a big short covering bounce that played out there. But also keep an eye out on the client positioning because they have been net long on the index. But in Friday's trading session, they came off, from the top. So the clients, they booked some profits. 2.5 lakh contracts, 2.8 lakh contracts, net long positions is what they had, which came down to around 2.4 lakh contracts or thereabouts. In terms of the options data, the 23,900 call, that was fairly active. I want to see what happens out here. The premium was around 200 rupees. If the writers will have to run for cover, going by the kind of gap up that we're looking at. So that's going to be the important strike that I'll be looking at in today's trading session. Levels come up for you on the screen. You'll want to close closer to around the 24,200 odd mark, which becomes a bit of a resistance zone. The 20 DMA will be crossed in the gap up, but you'll want to end above this level. And this near-term support comes in at around 23,500. The Nifty Bank as well will be charging ahead today. It'll cross the 20 DMA. Last week it crossed the 20 DMA. It couldn't stay above that level. So that's going to be important. And then you'll want to look at the 50 DMA and other levels as well. Stock that I'm looking at is Zomato. It's made its way into the F&O market. Now it's made its way into the sensex. The bigger cue though is it could possibly come into the Nifty in the next couple of months. So that's why Zomato will be a stock. Right place, right sector, growth opportunities out there. But we'll have to keep an eye on this one because the probability of going into the Nifty goes up as well.
Okay, all right, got it. So lots of interesting stocks in focus, and now know the levels to watch as we're all gearing up for a gap up open. So let's kickstart with the equity call of the morning. Rajiv Batra of JP Morgan expects equities to rebound post-state election results, reflecting renewed investor confidence in the government's economic policies. He says this will support mid-caps as well, considering the indices provide higher exposure to sectors aligned with government policies and themes. Hence, they are closing their tactical cautious stance on mid and small caps post gradual corrections since September end. Furthermore, he expects decent recovery in the second half of FY25 earnings. Rajiv says the key themes to focus on due to policy continuity are power up, which is engineering and construction, EMS, indigenous defense, corporate creditors, and power financiers, waterways, and capital market plays. Very interesting. Closing their tactically cautious view on mid and small caps. That's JP Morgan.
Okay, well, there's Mahesh Nandurkar of Jefferies who is weighing in as well. He says that BJP's resounding win in the Maharashtra elections boosts political stability, a market sentiment positive. He says cash transfers, populism remains on the rise, with such schemes credited partly to the incumbents winning state elections. Mahesh adds that already at 0.7% plus of GDP and some large states yet to join in, a consumption boost is likely. Large states yet to join in terms of these schemes, income transfer schemes. He goes on to say that expected pickup in government spending in the second half and improved liquidity conditions are helping credit conditions, and they should improve economic data points as well.